Benjamin Impossible. Chapter 18. The Battle of Fort Jefferson. Benjamin rolled to his feet and kicked the majordomo, who was still on the ground. Normally, Benjamin wouldn't kick a person while they were down, but this rule didn't apply to robots, so Benjamin threw his augmented strength into it and let him have it. The majordomo robot flew through the air and smacked against the brick wall of the fort's inner walls. He crashed back to the ground, landing on a table. Empty dishes flew through the air. "Attack!" Glockenspiel yelled, his voice coming from the majordomo's mouth as the robot struggled to its feet. All around them, the robot army looked up from their dinner. As one, the robots' heads turned toward Benjamin and Lemon-Time, and their eyes began to glow red. "Move, move, move!" Benjamin yelled to Lemon-Time as he activated his spacesuit's propeller rockets. Benjamin flew upward and shot across the clearing, circling the inner walls of the fort. The robots stared upward, tracking his flight path. Laser blasts shot into the sky, temporarily blinding him. Fortunately, his mirrored spacesuit visor darkened automatically to protect his eyes from the intense light. Despite the speed he traveled, several laser blasts struck home. Benjamin's spacesuit could withstand a lot of damage, but some of the laser heat leaked through to singe his skin. It felt like he was being pummeled with water balloons that some joker had filled with boiling water. Fortunately, the suit's cooling system dissipated the heat quickly, and the pain was fleeting. Too many laser blasts, however, and the shocking pain might knock him out or overwhelm the suit's cooling capacity. "Ah!" Captain Lemon-Time called out. Benjamin looked down and saw that the captain wasn't faring as well. The larger man was still standing on the ground, swinging his metal club back and forth, smashing robots and creating a colossal mess. He was also getting hit with laser blasts from every direction. His suit's cooling systems were quickly being overwhelmed. "You've got to keep moving," Benjamin yelled. "Head toward one of the wall arches." Lemon-Time struck a robot so hard it flew through the air, then he sprinted toward a protective archway in the fort wall. Benjamin flew down to cover him, shooting several robots in the face with squid ink and hitting another robot with his metal club. The club was surprisingly effective. The suit armor gave Benjamin the strength of 10 men, and the robot he struck cartwheeled away. But for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The club strike caused Benjamin's flight trajectory to veer unexpectedly, and he landed face first on a long dinner table. He slid along the surface of the table, knocking over plates and glasses. Robots fired down at him, but they missed, hitting the table and the tablecloth instead. Benjamin activated his flight boosters, and he shot back up into the air. The tablecloth snagged on his suit and trailed behind him, ablaze from the laser bursts that followed. "Holy smokes," thought Benjamin. "I'm like a superhero with a cape, except my cape is on fire!" The fire burnt out quickly without damaging him, though it did leave sooty marks on his spacesuit. Oddly enough, the smoke worked to his advantage, as it seemed to weaken the power of the laser blasts that struck him. Of course, Benjamin thought. The laser beams are just light waves passing through the air. The smoke particles in the air block light and weaken their destructive power. Benjamin used his gas blaster to shoot smoke bombs down into the crowd of milling robots, then glanced up to check on Charlie. He was still floating in the jar, several hundred feet above the battle. The robots were not firing at the jar, as apparently Charlie hadn't been tagged as a target. Benjamin decided to fly low to keep stray lasers from accidentally hitting his brother. "I wish you had given me a gun!" Lemon-Time yelled over the suit radio. The captain had ducked into a doorway within the fort walls and was beating back robots with his club. The robot lasers weren't as effective in close quarters, as only a few robots could aim within the cramped space. The robots, realizing this, began to use weapons of their own. The male-dressed robots were wielding their canes as swords, and the robots in dresses seemed to be using their fancy umbrellas as spears. "Captain," Benjamin said, "you're overloading your servos. You need to give them a rest, or you risk frying the electronic speed controllers." I don't have a lot of options here. I'm fighting off a mob of mechanical Terminators, and all I have is a stupid club." "Try hitting the robots with your left arm instead of your right." "You're joking, right?" "I'm turning on your special systems," Benjamin said resolutely. "My what?" "It's your secret weapon, Captain Lemon-Time. I built it into your suit. You have to activate it with a special phrase." "Well," Lemon-Time grunted, You could have told me about a secret weapon beforehand, you know? What is the activation phrase? I'm getting pummeled over here. You have to say, Mega Fart Power Activate, really loud to use it, Benjamin said with a grin. There was a pause. Are you freaking kidding me? It was going to be a fun surprise. You'd better hurry, Captain. The servos in your right elbow and shoulder are redlining. Your right arm is going to freeze up if you don't do something. Fine, Lemon-Time answered. Megafart Power Activate. At those words, a small panel at the back of Captain Lemon-Time's suit opened, and a dark, noxious gas spewed out of his bottom. The surrounding air instantly became cloudy with fart gas. The robot attackers paused. Why did they stop? Lemon-Time asked in surprise. Robots aren't affected by fart gas, are they? The fart gas has blocked their optical sensors so they can't see or use their laser weapons. You have a few seconds of breathing room while they engage the radar detectors built into their skulls. I recommend you run to the corridor marked here on your map. I'll meet you there and we can regroup. Sounds like a plan, Captain Lemon-Time said as he turned and ran. Fort Jefferson's battlements were 20 feet thick. Corridors and rooms ran within these thick walls that acted as living quarters for the soldiers who used to live there. You could walk through these tunnels, moving from room to room and circle the entire fort without ever stepping outside. This internal network was built to protect the defenders from aerial bombardment from attacking ships and to provide shelter against the frequent tropical storms that hit the Gulf of Mexico. Lemon-Time ran down one of these corridors, sprinting from the robotic attackers behind. Benjamin had uploaded a layout of Fort Jefferson into his spacesuit's computer, and he followed the map projected on his heads-up display, jogging toward the location Benjamin had indicated. With the captain out of sight, the remaining robots in the courtyard turned to shoot at Benjamin. The boy, following Lemon-Time's lead, swooped down into one of the inner archways of the fort. He pushed through an ancient wooden door and slipped into the room beyond, peering out to check on his enemies. The smoke screen on the central lawn was fading away, and he could see robots walking in his direction with red eyes. Benjamin closed the heavy door as laser blasts peppered his location. The wooden door, though sturdy, instantly caught fire from the onslaught. Fortunately, the red brick walls of the fort seemed impervious to the laser weapons and offered Benjamin protection as he scanned the sky for his brother. Charlie still sat suspended inside his jar. Laser light illuminated the glass vessel, and at first, Benjamin was afraid the robots were shooting his brother. He quickly discovered that the reverse was true. Charlie seemed to have cobbled together a mighty laser blaster and was shooting down into the fort, lighting tables and chairs on fire. His brother had turned into a vengeful disco ball, shooting beams of destructive light down upon the robotic army. I wonder where Charlie found a laser, Benjamin mused. That's one clever little fellow. He ducked into the fort and started running down a hallway toward his rendezvous with Captain Lemon-Time. Benjamin approached an adjoining hallway, and a pair of robots jumped in front of him. He karate-kicked one in the chest, knocking it back. Spinning, he rammed his metal club into the back of the other's neck, cracking the robot's spine and dropping it to the ground. The first robot he kicked seemed uninjured, and it quickly closed the distance, grabbing for him. Benjamin ducked, and the robot punched past him, its robotic fist throwing up a dust cloud as it rebounded off the brick wall. "This is a historic fort!" Benjamin yelled. "You can't just go punching the brickwork!" The robot, dressed in a fancy suit, laughed at him in Glockenspiel's voice. "I can do whatever I want, little boy, and what I want now is to pummel your face into those bricks." "Glockenspiel!" Benjamin yelled in surprise. Apparently, Glockenspiel had switched his control and remotely taken over this particular robot. No wonder this robot was harder to kill. Glockenspiel's robot backed up a step, and the eyes turned red. He was going to shoot Benjamin with a laser at close range. While Benjamin's suit could shrug off a laser blast, he feared Dr. Glockenspiel might be able to overload the laser's power and cause real damage. Thinking fast, Benjamin turned on his leg thrusters to full throttle and flew forward to tackle the robot. Benjamin and the robot collided with a crunch, and they both slid along the hallway with a terrible scream of metal and sparks as they scraped along the stone tiles. Benjamin hugged the robot around the waist so it wasn't able to aim its laser at him. A laser blast this close would not be good for his health. Unfortunately, Glockenspiel reached down and grabbed Benjamin's suit, embracing him in a crushing bear hug. "Ah!" Ah! Benjamin yelled out. Let go of me, you mechanical creep! The robot continued to squeeze, forcing Benjamin to divert power to his exoskeleton to keep the suit from buckling. His suit was incredibly strong, but these robots were nearly as tough and didn't seem to feel any pain. The robot arched Benjamin's face up, so they were looking face to face. It's time to finish you, Glockenspiel said as the robot's eyes again glowed red. Benjamin closed his own eyes tightly, preparing for a deadly laser blast to his head. The laser went off, directly into his face mask at point-blank range. Benjamin felt searing heat strike his face, like someone had blasted him with a hairdryer at close range. He opened his eyes tentatively and found that the robot's head was blackened and charred from the backlash. Benjamin's face shield was the most reflective part of his armor, and the majority of the deadly laser had reflected right back into the robot. Wow, that was close. My face is going to be sunburned tomorrow, I'm sure, he muttered. Pushing himself off the motionless robot, the boy limped to his feet. He thought the robot was dead, but it suddenly reached out a blind hand and grabbed his ankle. You can't get away that easily, boy, Glockenspiel's voice came out. Come back here! I don't think so, Benjamin spit back. He activated a button on his suit and a panel slid open on his left wrist. Metal blades popped out and began spinning quickly in a circle. It was his mom's power mop. He had installed the motor into his suit to use as a shield and a cutting tool. He called it his power shield. Reaching down, he cut the robot's arm off at the wrist using the spinning saw and turned to leave. Self-destruct sequence activated, the robot said in a monotone voice. Benjamin dove away as the robot exploded, the concussion knocking him down the hallway and flipping him end over end until he smacked into a wall. Ow, Benjamin said, then fell back to the ground. He felt like he'd been crushed with a steamroller. Captain Lemontime suddenly jogged around the corner, breathing heavily. What are you doing lying on the ground? We're in the middle of a battle. Stop goofing off. I think I just swallowed my spleen, the boy groaned. The captain pulled Benjamin to his feet and they started running again. Where to, kid? The captain panted. Benjamin queued up his map of the fortress. Charlie is up in the air, so I vote we go up. They ran through several rooms, heading to the nearest stairwell. Unfortunately, they had to pass through the kitchen to get there. Inside the stone-walled kitchen, several chef robots waited. They wore white hats on their heads and held large cooking knives in their hands. Duck! Benjamin yelled as a butcher's knife flew toward him through the air. Captain Lemontime threw himself to the ground, and a meat cleaver struck the wall behind him. Normally, a kitchen knife would pose no threat to their metal spacesuits. However, these robots were capable of throwing their knives with tremendous velocity. The metal blades buried themselves in the brick walls where they struck. Benjamin kicked over a massive wooden table and ducked behind it to use it as a shield, and several knives embedded into the table. The table split in half from the impact. Come out and play, little boy, one of the chefs called out with Glockenspiel's voice. Good little children shouldn't be hiding under the table. Captain Lemontime ducked down next to Benjamin. Was that Glockenspiel again? Yeah, Benjamin said as he shot his gas blaster at one of the robotic cooks. It looks like he just possessed the head maitre d' over there. The robot in question had walked over to the enormous fireplace and grabbed the giant metal cauldron that sat there. The giant pot was empty and mainly served to impress tourists. It must have weighed 200 pounds. Glockenspiel's robot picked up the massive cauldron, spinning it around several times before releasing it to crash into Benjamin's table. Compliments of the chef, Glockenspiel cackled. The pot crushed the table and it fractured into millions of splinters, knocking Benjamin to the side. I've had about enough of this, Benjamin yelled. He crawled to his knees and activated his power shield. The spinning blades created a deadly force field that he held before him, deflecting the thrown missiles aimed at him. He pulled out his club and advanced toward the robotic chefs. Hey! Lemontime cried out. You've got a shield? I want one of those. Benjamin struck one of the chefs with his club and it flew across the room to crash lifelessly into a wall. You've got a power shield installed in your suit as well. You just have to say the activation phrase to initialize it. Lemontime held up his club, barely deflecting a thrown knife that ricocheted off his weapon. And that activation phrase is? Benjamin grinned. You have to say it's time to slice some lemons. Fair enough, the captain said before activating his shield. The two spacesuited figures advanced on the remaining chefs, blocking the thrown implements with their spinning shields and crushing the robots with their metal clubs. Glockenspiel's robot backed up into a corner. "You've already lost, boy," the robot spoke in Glockenspiel's voice. "You just don't know it yet." "Laser blast!" Benjamin called out as he dropped to one knee. He held his power shield before him, the whirling blades spinning fast. Glockenspiel's laser hit him, but the spinning shield seemed to deflect and soak up most of the energy, and Benjamin only felt a warm tingle on his skin as the power washed over him. The whirling blades on Benjamin's wrist now glowed red from the heat, so he dove toward the maitre d' robot and rammed his glowing power shield into the robot's face. Sparks flew as the blades tore into the visage, tearing the robot apart and throwing electronic debris around the room. The machine dropped to its knees and fell forward. "Well," Lemon-Time said, "these spinning shields work great. I'll give you that." Benjamin powered his shield down and turned to the captain. "You better turn your shield off. It runs your suit's batteries down pretty quick." The captain waved his arms about. "How do I do that? There's no off switch." Benjamin searched the room, looking for the stairs. "You just make the Vulcan sign with your hand and it will turn off. You can turn it back on with the Spider-Man sign." The captain looked at Benjamin with a quizzical expression. "Say what?" Benjamin sighed. It was so hard dealing with adults sometimes. "Like this," he said, holding his hand up. "This is the hand gesture Spider-Man uses when he shoots his webs. The Spider-Man hand signal will turn your shield on. This is the Vulcan gesture of greeting from Star Trek. Do this with your fingers and the shield will turn off." The captain struggled with the finger movements and finally got the deadly spinning shield to turn off. "Geesh, man, haven't you ever seen a movie before?" Benjamin complained. "Where to now?" the captain asked, ignoring the comment. Benjamin looked around and finally spotted the stairway going up to the next level. "Follow me," the boy said, running up the wooden stairs. Benjamin and Lemon-Time found the second level of the fort looked much different than the ground floor. While the ground level of Fort Jefferson contained a warren of rooms and hallways, the second floor seemed to be one long room. Along one wall, however, were rows and rows of metal bars. "What is this place?" Lemon-Time asked. "They used Fort Jefferson as a prison during the Civil War. These must be the prison cells where they held the inmates." Benjamin ran to one of the barred windows that overlooked the courtyard below to see what was happening. The grassy field was in chaos. The tables were on fire, the grass was charred, and robots walked around in confusion, their outfits on fire or scorched and burned. Benjamin looked up and spotted his brother. He was still in the air, but the floating jar seemed to be lower and sinking slowly to the earth. "We've got to hurry!" Benjamin yelled out. "Charlie is losing altitude." "Why is that?" Lemon-Time asked. "Did he run out of pee?" Benjamin shook his head. "No. He probably had to let some of the helium out. Too high a concentration and he'd run out of oxygen. We can't get through these tiny windows, but there is an access ladder to the roof in that direction." Benjamin turned on his propeller jets and flew through the long room, making his way past the bars and working his way to the access port. Lemon-Time was right behind, trying to keep up. "Why don't we try to contact your parents on the Red Zeppelin? Maybe they can pick up Charlie from the air." "We can't call my parents, Lemonhead. I sent them to Key West as soon as they dropped us off. They should have reached the Boca Chica Naval Base on Key West by now. I'm expecting reinforcements from the military any minute." "Really? You called in the military?" Captain Lemon-Time asked, surprised. "That sounds like the first reasonable thing you've done yet." An explosion shook the fort. Lemon-Time glanced through a barred window to stare down into the courtyard. "Charlie's jar is down and the baby is racing around in his stroller," Lemon-Time exclaimed. The roar of the stroller's motorcycle engine echoed off the walls of Fort Jefferson as Charlie raced around the grassy field. Benjamin nodded. "Charlie made it to his UAS. I'm glad we brought it." "UAS?" "Urban Assault Stroller. Charlie and I built an offensive suite into the baby carriage in case we're attacked. Mom made us remove the chain gun and missile platform, so Charlie is probably launching pop rockets to distract the robots." "What are pop rockets?" "They are like flash grenades," Benjamin said as he ran. "The explosions aren't very destructive, but the flash is designed to temporarily blind an enemy. I'm not sure how effective they are against robotic eyes, though. We need to get out there and help him." They rounded a corner and spotted the access port to the top level. A square opening in the ceiling revealed the sky overhead. At one time, a wooden staircase led up to this exit, but it had rotted away long ago. Lemon-Time prepared to fly up, but Benjamin held him back. "Just a second, Captain," he warned. Looking around, Benjamin spotted an old mattress in one of the prison cells. He walked over and picked it up, then stood under the opening and threw the heavy bed up into the sky above. Instantly, the mattress erupted in laser blasts and stuffing exploded in every direction. "Now!" Benjamin yelled as he flew up through the opening amidst the aerial debris. Benjamin and Captain Lemon-Time landed on the upper walls of the fort, blinking from the bright light of the sun. They were instantly set upon by the sailor robots they had seen earlier. The robots no longer held balloons in their hands, but carried long metal poles with spikes. They looked like harpoons for spearing whales, except the robots were trying to harpoon them. Benjamin rolled to the side as a robot swiped down with his metal weapon. Lemon-Time, less agile, pulled his club out and parried another blade. Benjamin cartwheeled to the side, then kicked one of the robots with a space boot. The robot teetered and then fell over the edge of the wall to land in the ocean water below. "Laser blast! Behind you!" Lemon-Time yelled, so Benjamin jumped straight up into the air. The laser shot harmlessly past, and Benjamin twisted in the air and shot the attacker in the face with his gas blaster. They activated their shields in time to fend off another round of lasers from the sailor bots. Rather than continuing the melee, they took off into the air to circle the courtyard below. "Where's Charlie?" Benjamin yelled in panic. His brother was nowhere to be seen. Captain Lemon-Time pointed. "Over there, at the gate!" A crowd of robots amassed at the gate leading out of the fort. Benjamin and Lemon-Time flew in that direction, passing right over the gate walls toward the wooden docks where their lifeboat was moored. "Holy smokes!" Benjamin yelled in wonder. Parked at the wooden dock was the largest submarine he had ever seen. It was the length of 2 football fields and broader than a house. The submarine sat, half submerged, next to the dock, and a line of robots could be seen entering it through a doorway on the side. "I can't believe it!" Captain Lemon-Time exclaimed. "That's an Ohio-class submarine. That's the biggest kind of nuclear submarine ever built. How did Glockenspiel get one of those things?" Benjamin shook his head in wonder. "I don't know, but look down there. It's that robotic octopus, and it's got Charlie." Below them, they could see the robotic octopus crawling along the wooden dock. In its metal tentacles, it carried the jar containing Charlie and the hyperhelium machine. "We've got to rescue him!" Benjamin yelled as he dove. "Look out!" Lemon-Time called. Robotic gun turrets on top of the submarine swiveled and belched out projectiles at the 2 flying figures. These weren't laser blasts, but large-caliber bullets designed to shoot down airplanes. Some of these projectiles hit the fort behind them, and the brick crumbled from the onslaught. "Dive! Dive!" Benjamin screamed, taking evasive action to avoid being hit by the deadly barrage. He flew straight down into the ocean and plunged under the surface of the water. Lemon-Time veered to the side instead, gliding along the outer wall of the fort. Tracer bullets followed him, and the guns decimated the ancient brick walls. They were outgunned. You've reached the end of Chapter 18. Please leave a like below. Then continue to Chapter 19, The Lofty Plan.